Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. It is the knockouts of SuperPogChamps. PogChamps 7, if you want to call it that. We had PogChamps 6 earlier in the year. There was the Consolation Bracket Quarterfinals and the Championship Bracket Quarterfinals. With all due respect to the players in the Consolation Bracket, I will be showing you the two games from the Quarterfinals, featuring the players on the thumbnail. The first game I have for you with the white pieces is Sardoche versus Linda Diaz. Sardoche finishing second in Group B, Linda Diaz finishing third in Group A. Sardoche 2046, Linda Diaz 1955 in terms of their ratings. And we get B3, which is honestly not how you expected everything to start, but it is some of the openings we've seen. E5, Bishop B2, and now Knight to F6. Which is just a mistake on move 2 because you can take the pawn. Like, that's it. Just Sardoche is a pawn up on move 3. Knight c6, bishop drops back, d5. We're just going to continue playing like nothing happened. e3, bishop to e7, and now bishop b5. Which is a mistake. Why? Well, because a6. Sorry, a6. The pawn goes there. Sorry. I was waiting to make this recap, like I was watching the games live and I was ready. But they finished after midnight, so I'd fallen asleep. So I'm now recording this at 9:30 in the morning, and my computer's been on the whole time, so I think it's a bit slow. Anyway, a6 is just a good move here, and then the bishop has to go back to e2, and you've just wasted a tempo. But Linda short castles, and now we get bishop takes. B takes. Don't know if that's the right decision. Why? Because you've given black two bishops, and you can say you've damaged the structure, but it's not that much damaged. We get d3, c5, knight f3, rook e8, and short castles. Bishop to g4 pins the knight, and now knight bd2 gets not out the pin, but reinforces this knight. We get c6, which is an interesting move. h3, bishop to h5, and now rook to e1. Sardoche is doing everything right. He's up a pawn, he's developing his pieces as actively as he can. Probably needs to slide the queen to c2 or to e2. Queen b6, and now queen e2. And white has just come to rebetter. They're up a pawn, they've got the development, there's no problems here. Rook a b8. Now queen f1 is an interesting move. I assume the main idea is to get out of this pin, which is very annoying. And now you can push for d4 or e4. You just got to be careful. e4 can leave you susceptible to d4, which then blocks out your bishop. So we get knight d7, e4, bishop d6, and e5. Bishop all the way back to b8, and now rook to e3. Pushes d4, but now look at that. Danger levels. Danger levels. Knight here attacking the queen. Not a good move. Not a good move. Sorry, I was looking at it to see if I could convince myself. No. Queen a6, which is not the correct move. The engine prefers you go to c2. Now you've got to play something like rook to e4, bishop takes f3, pawn takes f3. White is slightly exposed. And now knight takes e5. Queen e2 is a very clever idea, just pinning everything. But you forget about... The engine thinks queen c8 is winning. That's the thing. It targets this pawn and it defends the rook. So now the knight's not really under pressure. And you can play knight takes f5, but then f5 comes. And your rook is kind of trapped. And if you don't believe me, these are the only two squares for your rook, and then your knight falls. So the best move according to the engine is to play rook e3. D takes e3, which then opens up the bishop, protecting the knight, and now you can play something like f4. At which point there would be e takes and queen takes probably. Yeah. So queen e2 not a good move, but f5 comes just to defend the knight. But we still take. Bishop takes, knight takes, and now rook d5. Yeah, rook d5 ain't gonna cut it because now I can play f4. And white has got a beautiful position still. White is up, what, 2 pieces for the rook after that exchange. 2 pieces for the rook. Which is 6 points versus 5, so slight advantage. Not to mention they can slide the king over, and they've got now more than enough material to make black. Rook e6, queen h5, g6, queen g5, queen c8, king h1, king g7, rook g1. White is doing everything correctly. Sardoche playing a beautiful game here. Queen d8, queen takes d8, rook takes d8, and now bishop to a3. How do you defend that? You have to play something like rook to d5, but now I can play h4. King to h6, and now rook to e1. King g7, and now can Sardoche convert in the endgame? Endgames are notoriously difficult. We get bishop takes pawn, and we get the bishop coming back. And this is an interesting scenario because the pawn is pinned, so it can't take. And you don't want to take because then you lose your knight, even if you're going to get a couple pawns in exchange for it. g4 now. f3, rook takes d5. Rook takes e5, not d5. Rook d takes e5. And that just gives up the rook, and it was not necessary. Because now we start to really crack in. That's check, and we pick this up. Sardoche is completely winning. He's been completely winning since move 3. But this game ends in fantastic fashion. Rook takes c2, bishop swings round, and we pick up literally almost all the pawns. A couple more pawns fall off the board, and we get here. Bishop takes a7. Draw. Game's not over, but this is a draw. Rook g6, king f3, let's say, and taking the rook is a draw. Because this king will get to the corner, and it's important that that corner is a light square, because this is a dark squared bishop, and you'll never get the king out. This is an a-pawn, there's no way to push it through, it's a draw. So, rook g6 is a draw and taking the rook. Rook a6 is the preferred move of the engine, which is a beautiful spot. Now rook f1 check, king g4. The bishop comes back, but now the a-pawn falls. Now, if Sardoche is to win this, or Linda Diaz is to win this, you have to mate in 50 moves from here. Rook d1, king f4, check. King slides over. You got to move the rook, otherwise I sack. Rook a3, check. Bishop comes here. Just by the way, in case you didn't understand what I meant. If in this position you played something like king f3, dead draw. Why? Because I take the bishop. It comes with check, you take my rook, and I take your rook. Whenever the bishop is defending the rook, you have to make sure the rook, I can't take it. So that's why we get, rook b4, king comes up, check. And now we're trying to make progress, but it's incredibly difficult to make progress here. But Sardoche is doing his best. He's bringing the king to the center. He's maneuvering his rooks, but there should be a way to hold this for black. But at the 2000 level, this is incredibly difficult to do. And check. King e8 was a bad move. The best move in this position is king f8. It's to go to one of the dark squares, king f8 or king d8. Because the king doesn't get opposition. Or he does, but then you've got an extra move. Because you go here, I can go here. And now you've got problems. Because check, bishop blocks. And mate. So Sardoche wins. And he gets through to the semi-finals. Which we'll have a look at in just a moment. But there was one other quarterfinal game. The second place and the third place of the two respective groups. And it was, of course, Andrea Botez. Let me just make sure the ending doesn't get spoiled. Andrea Botez versus Wirtual. Andrea with the white pieces. We know exactly what she's going to play. d4, d5, knight to c3, bishop to f4, Joe Barber London. a6 is the Gregorian variation, if that means anything to you. e3, bishop to f5, and f3. Playing this very uniquely is Andrea, but what she gets is just a complete... She's just going for it. She's going to attack this bishop, see if Wirtual blunders it. He is 1500, she's about 2000. He plays h6 defending the bishop, but I can still go here, get the trade, and now long castles. Andrea is here to fight, she's here to win. c4, queen d2, b5, a3, knight bd7, knight ge2, knight b6, a mistake. King b1, b4, takes, bishop takes, queen c1. She has pushed a lot of pawns here on the queen side. But Wirtual's got an open kingside queen. He's got an open queenside to attack. Her kingside, I suppose, because her king's there. Andrea pushed a lot of pawns on the normal kingside and gained a lot of space, but he hasn't castled yet. So, I mean, as idiotic as it might be, he could go long at some point. Queen d7, and now g5. Now here you must be precise, and Wirtual's not. He takes. It's a bad move because pawn takes, hits the knight. Now, if I were playing, I would have just taken this. Or you can play knight to h5 and then defend it with something like g6. He goes the wrong way. He goes to h7. It's not the first mistake that gets you, it's the second one. And now here, simple rook lift. First, the bishop comes back to attack this. You obviously can't push it because you would have lost your rook. You can't move your rook because you lose your knight. So he plays what is a very good move, is just bringing the bishop back. But what it means is now when you castle, your rooks don't defend each other. So perhaps, in this position, f6. It looks bad because takes, and you can take this. But now you can play something like, actually, probably, yeah, rook g8. Because the queen defends the knight. And you can get away with it. Wirtual doesn't quite see that and brings the bishop back, but now rook lift, rook h3. Now he long castles, but the doubling of the rooks and the knight is lost. We attack the bishop now with f6, but now he can take. You brought your bishop back, nothing defends your rook. And I've got two attackers on the knight, so Wirtual does what he can, he grabs the bishop, loses the rook, and now we get bishop to b4. And once again I highlight the queen, simply because that is Andrea's worst piece. e4 is her best move at this point, just to break in the center, use her material. You don't have to worry about trading the rooks at this point, because if they take you, your rook becomes active, and then the king has to come up and so forth. But this game ends in fire. So, rook, 1h6, rook takes check, king slides up, and now queen g1, finally activating. Wirtual's got to go for it. He plays knight a4. Now me, I snap take that knight, and so does Andrea, queen takes. But that leaves the king exposed. Queen g7 check. Knight blocks. But now queen g8. We're going for it. We're going for mate. Mate. They're not all mates, but you take my point. Knight f8. Defending. Check. Now I take the knight. Do you have time to take this? Well, no. You really don't. This is completely lost. But bishop takes f8, queen takes. And now king b5. Which I think was just a self-surrender, because that blunders queen c5, mate. Mate on the board. And Andrea Botez wins. And she is through to the semi-finals. Let's have a look at those semi-finals. What is going on here? Let's get the thing going. It's going to break for just a second. Yes, let's have a look at the semi-finals now and what they look like. So, if we go to the results page on chess.com, the quarterfinal shaped up like this. Obviously, Maisie Oka and Sammy Rayner both got buys straight through to the semi-finals. Maisie Oka will be playing Sardoche in the first semi-final, and Sammy Rayner will be playing Andrea Botez in the other semi-final. Just a quick look at the consolation bracket for those of you who are interested. Obviously, Voyboy and Will Benson got buys. Voyboy will be playing Spargo, who beat Tyler 1 2 points to nothing. SonicFox and Daryl Morey had to go to tiebreaks, but SonicFox gets the win, and he will play Will Benson in the other semi-final. So really, really rough times indeed for Tyler 1 and Daryl Morey. They finish effectively joint last place after being knocked out in the quarterfinals of the consolation bracket. I love PogChamps so much. It's such an awesome tournament. Let me know how you're enjoying it in the comments below.